Now, as of chapter 9, I think we're starting to get into the first portions of the plot. Because I don't believe that the first thing we're really going to see in the series is all these four horsemen just going right after King Arthur and all that. They've got to build up to that. Like, obviously, we haven't even gotten around to the gathering of the four. Like, we only have so far Percival. I mean, Percival's crew it consists of Donnie and now I would assume Nasians, or however the hell his name is pronounced. But the end of the last chapter was definitely for me like such a bad thing for Percival to do. Just if you know it's bad, like dude outright says what he's made for you is bad. Just don't drink it. I get what he was doing, and he's like, well, you said you were trying to help the forest and stuff, so you can't be all bad kind of thing. But I'm just like, man, if he says that could kill you, it probably is not the best idea to immediately drink it. At least find out what exactly it does, or like the side effects and stuff. But Percival drinks it. He ends up like getting just charged up with energy after some moments of what looked like just raw discomfort. Goes out and starts just yelling and stuff, yelling into the whole gorge, and that's when Donnie and all them start showing up. I had my theory that this was going to be a vampire. I thought he was going to be related to Zeldris and Gildra, but definitely not the case anymore. I mean, like, there's always that possibility, given like his, part of his backstory. He's like just a baby that was abandoned. There's always the possibility that like, oh, he was abandoned by one of these characters. I doubt that, though. It's one of those things where it could be, but it's like, why? I mean, that's a whole different like extra story piece of itself if it was somebody important versus if he was just some kid that was dropped off. I mean, plus if he's just human at this point, it's like there's no way it could be. There's no way he could be related to any of these other people. But I mean, that's okay. It's not a big deal. That was just something like I was like, oh, cool. This could be a connection point. I'm still waiting, obviously, for demon vampire kid to finally show up. Just out of the fact that cool people he's related to should have good powers. I would imagine he's just cool in general, but definitely not going to be from this character. So you're just going to have to be sitting for now. Meanwhile, he ends up after finding out that that Percival drinking the whole elixir he made actually worked, and it seems like he was doing pretty well for it, and he ends up drinking it himself, and he's explaining what his powers do. Also, it's funny when Donnie shows up and he mentions something about his hair, just because his hair, like, I figured initially when it happened it was going to be one of those things that's maybe for like a panel or two and then it goes away, but it's still there. So until it's not like the same thing as just like a temporary like boosted power up of his hair. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, while this is in effect your hair is going to get really big for a couple minutes. It's like, no, his hair permanently grew to that length. So until somebody cuts it, it's going to be this length, this overly gigantic size hair. I'm telling you, the funny thing is, I make jokes about him having like a Yu-Gi-Oh character's hair, but it's like legitimately in one of the panels, right before Donnie shows up when Nostian's on the ground, you actually just see like a really good display of Percival versus his hair, and his hair takes up like more mass than like the rest of his body. Like, he does look, it's funny and silly at the same time, but it's like, I don't want him to keep it just because I would assume this would get in the way of so many fights. This would be just the most inconvenient type of hair for like somebody who's a regular, well, he's not a regular fighter now, but like by the time he gets more into like the series and there's just battles all over the place, he's not gonna want to have that haircut, or it's just gonna get in the way. If he was doing something less physically demanding, or if he was more of a spellcaster, I would be more okay with it. I doubt that Nakaba would keep this, just because I feel like not only is it a lot of hair, it'd probably be really annoying to draw like on a regular basis. I don't know. Either way, Donnie and them show up, and we get some more backstory on both the Gorge and on Anastians as well. Like, there's this guy named Ordo that used to live here, this human, and he he was like a super doctor, and he was making all these medicines and whatnot for the fairies and the environment, and doing all the, doing all this work. And even at one point, he found a giant, that being Dolores, and it looks just like the one from, from Diane's story. So I think that one is in fact correct. And I'm going to go check out Quan's channel. He's the one that told me about the characters. I didn't even remember her at the time of when she was first showing up, and it went back all the way to the stuff with Diane and Matrona. So checks, okay. But after that point, he ends up finding a baby that was just abandoned in the woods. Again, I also don't think so. It looks like that when he was born, Nazians had different colored hair. That might have just been while he was young, but that just further, I think, pushes away the idea of him being a vampire. If he wasn't even born initially with like the same hair color as either Gelder or Zeldris, I mean, who knows? It just seems very, very unlikely at this point. Like, the only way now it could even fit is if for some reason they abandoned their kid in this gorge. I don't think so. But his ability, even after that, tells me that he isn't a vampire, I think, as well. Because after he drinks the poison, he ends up explaining what his power is. His body will, quote unquote, learn a poison, and then he'll be able to produce it naturally. So he actually reminds me a lot of Coco from Toriko, because that's similar to what he could do. Is he would end up becoming like immune to a certain poison, his body would just adapt to it, and then be able to produce said poisons the same way. He didn't have to drink it. I mean, I remember the first description of like how he kind of got his powers and became like a poisonous person. It was like he would swim through like poisonous oceans and rivers and lakes and stuff, and just kind of just do regular activities through all of these extremely poisonous terrains and environments. So it's a similar concept, but definitely to a crazier degree. I mean, but Nazians is what he looks pretty young. He doesn't, and assuming he's full human and he's not some form of other species, I feel like he might not be fully human just based off of his weird ability. That might just be like some weird ability he has, though. Who knows? But if he ends up having, some other form of higher level of background other than just plain human, it's got to have to do with this whole poison ability. It's a really odd skill to just have. It doesn't seem like he learned it. It looks like he just kind of like gained that power at some point, or at least he's had it, I think is a better way. Not that he gained it, but it's like either he unlocked it or it's something he's always had. Because this is something I would assume that you would just one day decide to start doing. But it is a magic, but at the same time, who would he learn this from? Maybe Ordo had it, and that's where he learned it from. I guess that would really check, because he knew him up until, I don't think they said like up until how long he had been away. I'd have to relook at some stuff, but they said he just disappeared. And when I was reading the chapter, when I got right before the panel, it said like one day out of nowhere, Ordo suddenly disappeared from the gorge. Right before then, I was like, okay, something's gonna happen to this guy. I assumed he was gonna die, but it's like he disappeared. And obviously the gap between that means disappeared usually means that he's gonna end up coming back. I figured it'd be way later, but no, it's like at the end of the chapter. But it's a lot more ominous and spooky. And he's just having a bad day. Nastian's all around. His day's gonna get worse. He ends up having his his poison prepared. He's gonna end up healing the forest. It's like you even see at one point like one of the spooky trees, like just breaking down. Parts of them are falling off. They're dying. The animals are turning more aggressive, and now they're throwing rocks at Nastians, blaming him for everything. When that's not really the case. Granted, it's very clear that they don't know what the issue is, but the fairy at the end is obviously related to it, and that is going to be the thing. Hopefully by the end of this story piece, to explain that why this is all happening, it's not Nastian's fault, and he can end up being more appreciated by these fairies and everybody in the woods after doing everything he can to help them. Because he was just like with Ordo taught him like, knowing your poisons are how to save people, which is really true, and we didn't think about it. Like, when it comes down to being a doctor and all that, like, to help people, you have to know all the, like, dark, gruesome stuff that goes with, like, the human body as well. You're gonna have to probably have, like, just just getting to the point of like knowing how to like mend wounds and certain aspects of like how injuries go, you probably have to look and experience like being around a lot of it. So if you have the ability, like if you want to gain the ability to like know and detect poisons, you would have to get to know them. So it's like, oh, well, this guy's suffering from this because either these signs or these symptoms, and those can get countered by, you know, X, Y, and Z. It just makes a lot of sense when you really think about it. But I don't know, I never really thought too much about it. I mean, I've thought about it before, but I mean, like, it's a good reminder in this chapter, really, where a lot of the medical practices stemmed from. Like, you gotta go into the darker areas before you end up helping people to, like, a more effective degree, which is very true. And I thought that was all around pretty good to add in for Nasians. Is there some ways to build off why he seems kind of dark, I would assume, younger age, dealing with all these poisons, doing some wild experiments and stuff, probably just gives you a little bit of a darker tone to you. But he obviously did it to help, and at the end of the day, he's still a good guy. Definitely seen like near that, not an anti-hero, but definitely like inching closer towards it with some of his whole setup of like, well, you attacked me, so I'm gonna have to use you as an experiment material with that one fairy. But I mean, like, at the end of the chapter, it makes me go, like, probably right with that one, because this spooky, weird fairy ends up flying to that opening in the gorge, which I actually kind of like, that specifically is where this is going on, because I never really, like, when I saw the initial gorge, like, obviously there's that big hole in there, I didn't think there was going to be some special secret up there. I thought it was just visually something cool, and then initially when I was first looking at it, and I thought, well, you know, maybe it's a result of an attack of some kind. Like, you know, maybe something by a giant, and that's why it has all those boulders in it, why it's shaped like that. It's like, oh, well, maybe the hole was caused by the whatever attack it was, too. But, I mean, that doesn't seem the case. It just seems to kind of be there. But the fairy's, like, hovering over a lake or something. Or I guess it wouldn't be a lake. It'd just be, like, a big body of water, like a pond. But he's just kind of hovering over it, and he's talking to, like, some creature within it. And he's like, oh, it's, you know, you raise a boy, it's up to a master to correct an errant apprentice, and he calls him Ordo. And you have this spooky, weird, veined hand coming out, and it's like missing its fingernails. And obvious questions arose from this. The bigger one to me not is like how this happened to this guy or what he's about to do. It's exactly what he became that has more of my interest. Because like right now, I mean, it's obvious he's gonna be a bad guy. He's gonna come out to try to attack. They're gonna have to fight him. You know, maybe figure out a way to either cure him or to outright defeat him. But is he supposed to be like a demon, or is he something completely new? I'm kind of hoping for a new force, because like the thing, at least looking at it right now, coming out of some form of portal. Is like, if he's coming out, like, if it's a portal, that's one thing, like, is he from a different dimension or something? Or if it's a body of water, is that going to have anything to do with, like, the Lady of the Lake, or anything to do with the chaos? There's definitely, what I would guess, more hype of it being a brand new thing, and not just demons again. Because, like, the demons, I think that not only would it be better for all of them for it not to be the demons, but the demons right now, for the most part, I would assume, like, any of them still around, like, are probably on pretty okay terms. You have one as the whole king with Leonis and whatever Zeldris is doing. So I don't imagine any demons are going to be that much of a problem, but I mean, it could be still some form of, you know, abomination related to them. Actually really cool if it was, like, the next villain figured out a way to kind of like make corrupted versions of certain races. Maybe this is like some weird, like, what if you took like a demon, a giant, and like some form of like a monster and combine them, and then, you know, put it into Ordo. And then like the villains in this one are going to be again like some form of weird, I think corrupted is the easiest way, like big amalgamation of different races all corrupted and evil. Who knows? Hopefully we get in the next chapter. I just want to know what, like, if this is a different species or anything, what it's referred to. Like, I don't need the full backstory of whatever it is. I don't need to be like, oh, this is a creature that's from 4,000 years ago called the, I don't know, Gollywobber or some shit. So I don't need anything like that. I just want to know, it's like, oh, this is a apparition or something, an abomination or something. I don't know. I just want to know exactly what to call it. Like, what is this newer species or newer kind of just general threat? I think is a better way to kind of put it. Wait, I don't even need the full bad guy. Like, whatever the like antagonist group is that's going to be the first like opponents, I don't even need that yet. I just want to know what this thing is called. That's like the only thing I want to know of like my hopes for the next chapter. What is this? Chapter 8? So chapter 9? Wait, no, this is chapter 9. So chapter 10. My only wish list for that chapter is just to know what this thing is called. If this thing comes out and somebody says something, oh, that's a whatever, I'll be like, okay, cool, thanks. At the rest of the chapter, we're good. I just need this one thing. Anyway, other than that though, pretty fair chapter. Like for the most part, it was a Nasian's chapter. You're just finding out about him and then setting up the stuff with Ordo and stuff. But I like just in general like what his character was displayed with, and he's got a cool power, so I'd like to see more of it. Like, you can see the extent of it, of how he can just apparently create more of these poisons and stuff with his whole ability. What do you call it? Venom mixing. So we'll see. I mean, I would assume that it's not just plain poison. He could probably also do, just because of the name, like venoms and have stuff like necrosis in his attacks. Or maybe like acid moves or something. I don't know. Either way, we'll see. Anyway, other than that though, comment below. Tell me your thoughts about this chapter and what your thoughts about this new character are. I definitely want to see more of this guy for sure. He's got a cool vibe to him. I like him at the moment. We'll see how things just go beyond this though. Other than that though, comment below, thumbs up the video, friend the like button, subscribe, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everyone who subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.